my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
They're here.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
It's showtime.
Right, welcome everybody to another episode of the VHS Strikes Back. I am one of your hosts, Chris, and my co-host and very good friend is Dave.
Hey there, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to the VHS Strikes Back, the show where we dust off the old video player and go on a nostalgic journey to look at the good and the bad movies of yesteryear. Now, Chris, what are we going to review this week?
Well, Dave, it's a Patreon pick. It's our good friend and supporter, Herb. He's gone with another Aussie classic, Dave. So we're going back to 1981. It's one of the first movies starring Mr. Mel Gibson, also starring Mark Lee. This one's called Gallipoli, which is based on the World War One conflicts. The actual war, Dave, so we say, not the conflicts. I was trying to sound professional there and just ballsed it all up, but there you go. So yes, it is based on that, and it's based on in Turkey, basically, the Gallipoli Peninsula, which is actually part of modern Turkey, and a battle there. So had you even heard about this one, Dave? Any backstory to this one?
I hadn't heard of it, no. And to be honest, especially in the VHS era that we talk about, and we go on about the movies that we love and stuff. Chris, I fucking hated war movies. It reminds me, if I look at any kind of 80s or even previous to that or after, any kind of war movie, I think of being at my nan's on like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon or something like that. And there was either a Western or a war movie on. And I just had zero interest in it at all. And so this could have been on the TV. And I don't know, I'd have probably played with my Star Wars figures or something like that. So there was just nothing that grabbed me about it. It just seemed to be, a bit of firing at each other and then, a lot of talking. And I don't know what it was. I just was never interested in it at all. And I think probably because of that, I've probably got a whole bunch of movies that probably now I'd appreciate a lot more. And I'd heard about Gallipoli as a conflict, and I have to say, Chris, I have been on a rabbit hole this week because you say modern day Turkey, which is right. So it was the old Ottoman Empire. I'd heard about it because it was basically a military disaster, and it was a bit of a blot. A lot of people sort of blame Churchill for that fuck up, whereas apparently he was quite a junior person, but whatever, it was a bit of a fuck up. It was a bad plan, and then you had mistakes on top of a bad plan and everything, and so I knew it because of that, but I didn't realize so in the UK you don't really taught much of this stuff. I mean, I dropped history as soon as I could. I still regret that now. I wish I'd be more interested in doing it now, but when you got shit teachers who can't inspire anything, you can't bring history to life. It was just dull for me. I just remember from history learning about arable farming and shit like that. It just didn't interest me. So yeah, I knew of the conflict, but I've gone into it a lot more this week after watching this movie. It's really grabbed me, this one.
Interesting. I think I can relate what you're saying with the war stuff. My granddad used to always go around there. The one who had a short temper with the VHSs, Dave. He helped me with my martial arts movie obsession as a kid. But he was like World War II sort of veteran. He'd been in India, Burma, and places like that. So he'd seen bits of, enlisted when he was younger than he should have been. They all used to enlist when like 15 or whatever. And it's like, right, go around the block and come back and you'll be 16 sort of thing. And so he'd seen the back end of sort of World War II, but he was obsessed with the war movies. You're so right. Like he was in the TA and everything before I was born. He'd give it all up, but he was in the TA after he left the army and all that. And he used to do all that stuff at weekend. And he was quite, you could tell he'd been in the army, when we were younger, very to the point, very like stern and everything. But he loved these fucking movies. But I would sit with him then and talk about stories as I got older, especially. I mean, he passed away 2004 and I would have been 26. something like that, 25. So, but I always was interested in the stories he had as I got older. You know what happened, and he was. I've actually got his fucking some of his army stuff because like my nanny's wife's still alive. But unfortunately, she got dementia now. So a lot of the stuff she was trying to get rid of. But I've got all these like army stuff. I've got all these papers and that. But I've actually got his knife. Like it's like a fucking Rambo knife. He's not very sharp though, Dave. I don't think it'd even cut butter, but I've actually got it, and it was what he had. It was an army issue knife and stuff from World War II. So these are the sort of films I grew up on. My favourite war film is The Great Escape. You know, I absolutely love that movie. Absolutely love it. I've said to you before, I keep threatening for us to cover it, but it's 3 hours long, Dave, and I just think, unless you absolutely piss me off, we're never going to cover this one. I'm like, right, Dave, we're doing 3 hours of The Great Escape. And knowing that you're the week after, you'll be like, well, fuck that. We're doing all the Lord of the Rings trilogies then, Chris. You can fuck off, one of them.
We're doing Cloud Atlas again.
Yeah, Cloud Atlas again, the extended director's edition, special edition. But yeah, so I'm the same as you. It was always like these sort of movies on the proper classic World War II black and white movies, Bridge over the River Kwai. There was always some fucking movie at Saturday afternoon. And my granddad liked rugby, which I fucking hate rugby. And he used to have rugby on. If I went round there and we were playing football at the local school next to it, we used to play all day. We used to go and get some fucking brew or use the bathroom or whatever. And he'd have them on. He'd be like, oh, you need to sit down. Why don't you watch one of these with us? And we're like, no. He'd have rugby on, rugby union. Like, no, you're all right. Or he'd have a fucking war film on. But then I say as I got older, I appreciate it more, but I'm the same as you. But Westerns, fucking hated Westerns as a kid as well. Same, even I can appreciate the Clint Eastwood stuff now and really appreciate a load of like Westerns and that. Even like early 90s, Unforgiven, that great movie, Clint Eastwood, brilliant movie. And then we haven't covered that yet. But yeah, this sort of stuff I had no idea about. And I've seen, because I love Mel Gibson, obviously, Martin Riggs, I've seen this mentioned, but you know what I'm like, Dave? It's not something that would have interested me. I've seen him with his hair, the way he was. He's a young Mel Gibson, one of his first movies, and I've heard the name Gallipoli, but no backstory. So I was sort of then thinking, am I going to enjoy this? Is it one of the movies that's aged, like we were saying last week, aged so badly that you think, oh, is it, but it's rated 91% on Tomatoes. So it's an interesting one that Herb's picked as well, because some of these Aussie movies we've covered I've really enjoyed. So it's quite interesting to see, do I watch it in one sitting? Is it a phone job when I'm on my phone, or do I get completely in on the story? So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Very good, very good. Well, Chris, should we get into the trailer?
Let's go.
From a place you never heard of comes a story you'll never forget.
Gallipoli.
In Western Australia, May 1915, Archie is an 18-year-old stockman and prize-winning sprinter, and he longs to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force. He is trained by his uncle Jack and idolises Harry Lascelles, the world champion over 100 yards. Archie wins a race with a bullying farmhand, Les. Archie runs barefoot and Les rides on horseback. Now, Chris, what do you reckon to the opening of this movie?
Well, you know what, David? It's interesting. You were saying about growing up and watching these with my grandparents, my granddad and that, but also there was that whole influx of Aussie TV shows. So my mum, when we used to, I saw it, it's so bizarre this, but on Twitter last night, someone had a picture of remember the Sullivans? And I always remember the Sullivans was after World War, I think it was World War II, maybe it was World War One, but it was after one of the World Wars, and like Australia coming back to sort of normal, and the family there, and there was people who were in like the army, some of the brothers and all that. It was just a weird. I always remember the start because the girl used to nick the hat off the lad, and they'd run down the street and all that stuff. But it was one of them shows that came in. And I absolutely used to watch it all the time. Like when it was on, what was it, 1976? Yeah, to 1983. And it was about just after World War II was starting. Sorry, not afterwards. It was starting. But this feels like that. It's shot. It's a movie, and you can see it's a movie, but it didn't feel unfamiliar, if that makes sense. Like, see Mel Gibson young, a bit of a hero, Martin Riggs, like some of my favourite characters as a kid and that. And just seeing where he came, and then it's like Mad Max was around this time and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I sort of bought into it, and I'm the same as you. There was moments in this where I was like, I need to have a read up on this, because the 100-yard dash thing and everything, and it's a low production thing. You can see that, but I do think like within 20 minutes, first 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a bit of a slog. But when it gets about the 20-minute, 25-minute mark, it's a human story, which is quite interesting for us. And it's not a piss take or anything like that. It is a real human story. And it's quite interesting that even though it's a war movie, there's not a lot of war fighting and that goes on until literally the death. It's more about, it's probably a coming of age thing, I suppose, isn't it? If that makes sense.
I think it's a coming of age story, more so than I mean, the title implies, it's this very famous thing. And I said about, when we were growing up, you might have heard about how this was a massive military fuck up in the First World War, but that's it really. Whereas you can see and sort of reading into it as well, this is massive in Australia and New Zealand and like places like Tonga and all the surrounding islands and stuff. So I was expecting the full-on war film. I was expecting, basically the military side of it, but it's literally like the last 20 minutes or so, isn't it? That you get to the actual battle.
Yeah.
And I think it was a massive surprise what this is, but I think that plays into the tragedy later, that it is a coming of age film, but some of these young men who went off to war, they didn't get to come of age, So I think it's really clever how it spends so much time with our main characters. I mean, you've got Archie, who's it's almost like he's the point of view character, but Mel Gibson just oozes charisma off the screen, doesn't he? As Frank. And you've got Archie, who's this kind of idealistic young lad, and you've got Frank, he's a bit more cynical. And you say about Mel Gibson, I mean, he's a bit problematic nowadays, isn't he? For the last decade or so. But what a good-looking bloke he was as a young lad, like. And I saw Mark Lee, who plays Archie. I think he ended up... he didn't do nearly as well, but I'm sure he ended up in Home and Away or something like that. But I think them starting off, I did think, surely, mate, I know you're good at running, but put some fucking trainers on, shoes or whatever. Don't go running fucking barefoot across the bloody outback or whatever. So, it's like fucking the state of his feet, and, once he'd done that run. But I liked how, basically you're talking about two young athletes with the whole of their lives in front of them. And what I think this film does brilliantly as well. So we know kind of how the birth of modern Australia started, and you actually do have a couple of Aboriginal characters in here, don't you? And, but what was it? Late 1700s is when those original settlers or colonies were formed, I guess. But you're a few generations down the tracks now. And I like the dialogue, which is, questioning. You've got, idealistic Archie saying about, certainly when it talks about, going to the war and whatever a bit later, and you see all the anti-German propaganda and killing babies in Belgium and stuff like that. It was a big thing that they played on. And Frank's like, yeah, why do I care? Even his dad's like, don't go fighting off for the British Empire. They hung your dad, hung your granddad. And so I thought it was a very honest conversation, because I'm thinking while I'm watching it, I'm like, why would you give a fuck about a war in Europe?
Yeah.
And, ultimately you can say, okay, there's some kind of British ancestry. I guess we're colonized by those fuckers over there, but why do I want to fucking strap on a rifle and jump on a boat to go and fight there? But I think, a lot of obviously there was no Netflix around then. They couldn't watch fucking war films. I think a lot of the people were bought into the propaganda of it, and it was almost like a romantic thing and a heroic thing, to go off to war. Whereas the actual fucking reality of modern warfare, everyone kind of ignored that or just wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think this movie does such a good depiction of that, doesn't it? Where you're on both sides. It's like that thing in it where they play football on New Year's Day, isn't it? Like the battle in World War One, and they all play together and all that. And it's like,
But there are some tasty challenges in there, by the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Reported.
No, it doesn't. VAR would have been right on some of them challenges. Big skin football, but no, you've got that whole thing, haven't you? Where, and I don't know how I've come to this conclusion, but when it comes to war, is you're on one side or the other. It's like anything tribalism, isn't it? Football, whatever. And I think one of the things I've watched recently, and this has gone back about 4 or 5 years, and this is going to be a hell of a throwback, is The Mandalorian, right? So it's that episode where he actually takes his fucking mask off, which is ridiculous because he should take it off in the next episode when, spoiler, they're on that bloody ship and everything, and there's a Jedi turns up and all that, and he takes it off again. But he should have done it in that episode, not the one before. It makes no sense, the payoff. However, there's a scene in it where we get the perspective of the Empire, the people who believe in the Empire, the normal people. There's that one scene where they see the rebellion as baddies. Now, we've always watched the Star Wars. It's through the eyes of the Empire, of the baddies, Darth Vader, the Emperor, everything. And they are. It's that like that Nazi thing, isn't it? The Germans and all that sort of thing. However, when you see that one scene, it always stuck with me like, yeah, these normal people who are just supporting, like a political party, innit? These, whoever you support, you're going to be, a football team, I'm support. We talked about this before we were recording. United are absolutely shocked at the moment, but you're never going to stop not supporting them, and that defence of them will always be there. You're the same with Liverpool, and I think that's the thing.
Also had a recent stalemate in Turkey.
Why?
As we're recording now.
Why have you done that? So anyway, let's get back to the movie. But what I mean is, like, people and kids were thrust into these situations with war, weren't they? It's like, well, you've got to go to war. It's the expected thing, like World War II. All hands on deck. All the women were the ones who kept the country, going. The amount of women who did everything, basically, while all the guys were out fighting against the Germans and all that sort of thing. And that's the thing when I watch these war movies, sometimes they're so, like, they make it out to be so glamorous, don't they? Like, oh, it's fucking brilliant. Like Heartbreak Ridge of Andrew Garfield. What a great movie that is. It shows, like, as a character, that guy was not interested in going to war or anything. He wanted to just, like, help people, whatever. And this is this. Yeah, they believe in it. We need to go and fight. We need to go that. But you can clearly see in some of the dialogue, it's like, they're like, I don't want to fucking go fighting. I could die here. Like that. That's the scariness of war and being in an army and it's amazing that people do it, and we wouldn't have the life we have if there wasn't that sort of protection around us. But yeah, I think this does such a good job and of it's a propaganda, really, isn't it? They go into war, they're learning about being in the army and all the things you have to go about, but also keeping that friendship together as well. Like, I've honestly, I've probably not articulated it very well, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching this movie. I must admit, I didn't think I would. I thought, it's going to age really badly. It was really pixelated at the start, but as it goes on, I think the acting's brilliant. I think Mark Lee's really good in it, Dave, to be honest. The co-thingy with Mel Gibson, I think he plays a great part, to be honest.
I kind of like all the characters, and they seem like fully fleshed out characters, because even Frank's little entourage in the infantry, and they end up in Egypt, don't they? They end up in Cairo, I think it is, just by the pyramids and everything. And I think it's played quite well, and his little entourage there all seem to have their own personalities, and they go and give that shop owner a bit of a shakedown, didn't they? But they were just being dicks. And again, I don't think the movie was trying to say, oh, look at these guys, they're perfect angels, fucking lads, army lads, young lads away on tour essentially, and fucking behaving a bit badly at times. I did appreciate the fucking talk they gave them though, on the beware of the prostitutes, and like basically your knob will fall off, but you're gonna fucking do it anyway. So here's an anatomy sketch, So
enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And I'll see you down there, kind of thing, probably. But I thought it was just really well put together. Like I say, you go right back to the start, and Frank and Archie had started this kind of friendship through, through sprinting, basically through running. And, you can tell that Frank, he's, like I say, he's a bit more cynical, but he's a bit more worldly wise, isn't he? He's trying to do a bit of gambling, isn't he, to make a bit of money. He bribes the guy, put money on me to win and whatever. So I like the way it all steps through there, but I really like, again, the dialogue to it, the ongoing, why would we fight this war and whatever. I like when they go off to walk through whatever bit of desert it is, and the other fella's like just taking the piss out of him. It's like, you're gonna die. Sort of thing. But they find that guy with the old fella, and that's when they're having this discussion. Basically, he fucking saves their life, doesn't he? The mad bastard's trying to get across there. And then he's asking, like, well, why would you go off and fight that war? And he said, well, if they win there, then they could come here. And he sort of looks around the desert, and he's like, yeah, they're welcome to it. Fucking shit here, So I really like these moments, and again, I think I can't help but feel Frank. It's just the idea that when he sees the farm girls, I think it is swooning a little bit at the idea of Archie going off. He's like, oh yeah, it might be a good thing, this fighting for the war kind of thing. So yeah, I actually, this film really got me. I thought, this, I'd never heard of it, never, like I say, kind of heard of the battle. I can go off on a tangent maybe in a bit about how it, not how it unfolded, but why they got there in the first place. But just the friendship that they have, and you see that, he's trying to get him in the lighthouse, basically the horseback. So Archie can actually ride a horse. And then you got Frank looking like a knob because he can't get the horse.
They're all laughing, aren't they? Yeah.
They're all taking the piss out of him. So he ends up in the inventory for a bit. So you're thinking, where are their paths going to meet again? Because that's where the movie does seem to focus a bit more on Frank for quite a bit until they meet up again later. But yeah, I again, like you say, it's a bit of a coming of age movie, bit of a journey, bit of a quest. And yeah, it's just, we'll have to get to the battle at some point, but I thought all the things leading up to the battle really help you to understand these fully formed characters.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, like, I've read stuff online saying, like, a lot of it isn't, they've had a lot of license with this. A lot of it is not factually true. But I also think they've interviewed people who were there or family, people like Rupert Murdoch. His dad was a reporter apparently after this battle and got to know people and found a lot of information out about, what had happened. So you've got that sort of thing because he's obviously bankrolled this and stuff like that. But then you're looking at like the actual stuff they had, like the army stuff, the clothing, everything. There's a lot of research gone into this as well. And I think you're right. I think like when they split off and you get that like two friends just go away and they're fighting the different things and the learning, ultimately it's about conflict, isn't it? It's about how wars are won and lost by people who have never been on the front line. Any war movie you ever watched, all the people, Saving Private Ryan and all the men and women who get killed, they're just fodder, aren't they? It's like, we've only lost 1,000 people today. Oh, that's good. It's like, oh yeah, that's 1,000 people's lives, families, without dads, brothers, sisters, whatever, mothers. It's like, that's the one thing with war, isn't it? It's like the decisions to go to war are made by, we look at that fucking knobhead, Boris Johnson, like all the stuff with the Ukraine and everything. And it's like, you've never even picked up a fucking water pistol, you fucking tosser, but these, and I'm not just blaming Boris Johnson, but that's the problem that a lot of people have with war is it's like you're sending young kids into battle to fight and win your argument. But there's a human side to it that just gets completely overlooked, doesn't it? And I think this movie does such a good, even now, 40 years later, it still holds up. I think it's really. I think Mel Gibson and Gilly are brilliant in this. I think together it shows Mark Lee, they're so good together in this. Like it just the portrayal of it. It wouldn't work if their acting was really wooden, and it isn't a massive movie for budget and that. But I think the message it brings across is really it's quite a thingy because I'm with you. I'd never go back on these movies. I'll do it while I'm watching it or when we're about to record, but I've sat there myself just reading different things and watching some YouTube stuff. And I'm like, it's difficult for me to sit there and read bits and that. So I end up going down YouTube, but there's plenty of stuff on here that you're like, wow, how did they even get to this point? Even just to get on the front line, knowing that the politics behind it and great film. Honestly, what a pick, Herb's pick, because I thought I'd be slating it. And I can't because it's a war movie and it's true. And I'm not slating it like doing my usual stuff, but I took a lot out of this one this week. This is a bit like when we did, remember the guy who went across America in his lawnmower to see his brother? And we were
the straight story, was it?
Yeah, for some reason, I really enjoyed that movie. And this movie, I've really enjoyed. Like, it feels human. It doesn't feel over the top. We haven't got like fucking Arnie turning up like John Matrix with a big fucking M16 or whatever, and he's fucking taking everyone out or whatever. He's not on some Apache helicopter just being with a big cigar in. This is what war is like, innit? And they were even down to the guns and the stuff they had that they could use. Like in the war, it was very primitive, wasn't it? Like it wasn't like the war now. They could do a war by pressing a button and nobody has to leave the bloody house sort of thing. That's the sad thing. You can end a war like that. But with this, it's just, I felt it was really, really well put together. The cinematography is excellent on this as well.
Yeah, a lot of the shots are fantastic. And you say about fucking pricks like Boris Johnson, I think that's played up quite a bit here. But of the many rabbit holes I've been on this week, I've looked a bit more into the conflict and conventional sort of wisdom or something that I'd heard over the years is, well, the idea was to knock the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire got split up after, it was on decline for years, but it got split up basically after the First World War. And part of it became Turkey, you got Iraq and all the sort of Middle Eastern countries. I think even Greece, Albania, places like that, part of it. And basically, because they were at a stalemate on the Western Front, so no one was making an inch at all. So kind of Europe was tied up there. So any new troops coming in, they thought, well, okay, we'll knock kind of the Ottoman Empire out of the war. We'll come around from the eastern side. We'll knock them out of the war and then cut off the supply lines to Germany and whatever. But and I don't know if this is 100% correct, but I was listening to one podcast and he was saying, well, actually, you know, that is the conventional wisdom. I wouldn't fucking be surprised if someone like, you know, Churchill was one of those people. He'd rewrite history. He'd literally say, well, this is the way history will be rewritten. I know because I'll write it that way. I heard this guy talk about, well, actually, it was all to do with the price of wheat. And so at the time, Britain were the biggest importers of wheat, and you had various countries, so Russia being one. And Russia, of course, at that time being a big ally, you basically had the UK, France, and Russia were the kind of superpowers at that time. But Russia, they couldn't export their wheat. So they were looking at the price of wheat and stuff. So if you have a massive surplus, the price goes down. If you have a shortage, the price will go up. And it sounded like they were manipulating the price of wheat, you know, to say, oh, it's going to be a surplus this year. And then the price would shoot down and everyone, you know, goes a bit nuts on the stock market. Right. Yeah. Let's sell. And then the British would buy a load of the wheat and then it would return back to normal when everyone figured out, oh no, it's going to be an average year kind of thing. So it was not being able to get the wheat out of Russia, apparently, that was a big factor in going to try and attack at Gallipoli. So, and you think of that and you think, fucking hell, a bunch of fucking politicians and people probably sat around a conference room or a library or something, smoking their pipes. That's where the decisions are made. But you end up with the people, these young men who are given this kind of propaganda information, who are riled up, wanting to go off and fight this war. And those are the people who get killed for it. So it probably, you know, it's been on a full-on rabbit hole this week, and just considering, you know, how a lot of these wars are just, you know, they're conflicts determined by fucking elite people, but they're never the ones who pay for it.
No, never, ever. You're so right. And I do think, like, as the movie goes on, it's like different things going on and miscommunication. Obviously, this day and age, you could FaceTime someone from the battlefield and go, right, this is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. The big thing in this movie is it's the communications breaking down, isn't it? Like everyone on both sides, we don't really see from the other perspective or anything, but you've got the other side, like the Turkish side there, the Ottoman there, is like nobody really wants to go to war. Nobody really wants to, you know, there is a few battles. These people obviously were killed and injured, and that's some of his friends and that. Frank gets informed on it. But I do think that it just, it's almost like the Chinese whisper side of things, where you hear something and by the time it's gone to the 10th person, it's a completely different story in it, or a completely different outcome, and there's a spin on it because everyone always adds a little bit to a story, and, you know, little things like that. But this is such a serious thing, and it also shows that, like, if this is accurate, there was a chance for this whole conflict to end. And Frank, you know, the running thing comes back and done it, you know, like, because the phone lines are down. And honestly, and I don't know about you, Dave, but the hairs on the back of my neck, like the tension, you were thinking, this is going to fuck it all up. He's not going to, they're not all just going to put the white flags up and go, right, everyone, let's have a cup of tea. Don't worry, I nearly shot you in the head. Let's all be friends. It's that whole thing, how one mistake can just cost so many fucking lives, and like information is key in these situations, and it obviously wasn't, was it? It was all like mistakes. So I honestly, even doing it now, I'm like, it's getting the hairs on the back of my neck going, because you're like, there's so much could have happened. These poor people could have had lives, you know. And I think it's brilliant. I think, like, it's such an underrated war movie, and it's, as you said before, it's 20 minutes really at the end we actually get the action. It isn't Saving Private Ryan from the get-go. They're at it, you know, like any of these war movies, the classic war movies, where it's just, a lot of them now. I mean, I like the one with what's the one the other year, the one where they were fighting over Dover and Calais, the bloody Tom Hardy was a fighter pilot. Dunkirk. Went to cinema to watch that. What a great movie that is. But that is literally from the get-go. It's just constant in it. It's just constant action. Every scene. There's not a lot of scenes where you get that little bit of a lull to bring the audience back down. But with this, everything was shot differently then. And they're telling a more human story. They have to because of the effects. We got Tom Hardy driving Spitfire, obviously it's CGI'd or whatever, but there's thousands, millions of pounds to make these movies now, whereas this had a budget of 2 million. So it has to rely on the acting, and the acting's brilliant, and they're manipulating the scenes to make things look bigger. And I read that thing where they wanted 400 male horse riders, didn't they? And in the end, they got 200, and had to get 200 women disguised as men because they just didn't have that many men to ride the horse. It's just little things like that. Then it's not that'd be CGI'd now, wouldn't it? Green screen. You'd have maybe 10 people on a horse now, and then the rest of them would be CGI'd, and it'd all look. You'd be like, "Wow, that looks amazing," but it's not real. Whereas this is a real war, the real battlefield they created. And I think, especially in Egypt, imagine. Australia's fucking roasting anyway, but in Egypt for the final bit, it must have been steaming next to the bloody pyramids and that. So I'm cooing over it because I was quite in awe of the movie, to be honest, Dave. I know you were, as you say, with the rabbit hole. I've really, really enjoyed it. And the final act, I think, just brings it together in a perfect way. We don't need everyone getting taken out. We don't need that. We need that intrepidation, that fear. It sort of brings that whole thing of war to me. Honestly, as you can tell, I'm never usually this enthusiastic about stuff like this, but it really got me. This great movie.
Yeah, one scene that how you say about the scene. It's going to be a weird tangent. The scene in Rocky 5, where Mickey's telling him to get up.
I watched it this week again.
It always gets you. One scene that I cannot watch without getting properly choked up is that very last bit of Blackadder Goes Forth when they go over the top.
Yes.
And it kind of happened by accident, because they filmed it, and it was just that they only had one take to get it all. And when they looked back at it in the editing room, it just looked shit. It looked really bad. And basically, people were supposed to be dead on the floor, and were moving around and stuff. So it was not really usable footage. And so a bit of edited mastery, that's where they slowed it all down, added the music in, and then that fade to the field of poppies. And it's just, it gets me every time, even talking about it now. And the ending to this movie, I think is up there. I mean, we've spent the whole movie with these, with Frank and Archie, and we've seen their friendship grow, and, the love that they have for each other, because Frank's like, "Oh, you're my all-time buddies, in the inventory, but fuck this shit, I'm off." Archie's here now, so fuck you guys. But yeah, we jest, of course. But he does fuck them all off, and then goes off with Archie. So they have this this real deep friendship there. And I think the way it finishes, you know what's coming. I mean, obviously you've got to have kind of a baddie that's not the Turks. That's the British commander or whoever, saying they've just got to go over the top, and that's what it was like, wasn't it? Even in the Blackadder thing, they're going over the top, almost as fodder, as a fucking distraction, because something else is happening. And, I was looking that Australia had nearly 9,000 people killed. New Zealand had 3,500. The British Empire, and again, you probably got a lot of people from India. You've probably got the Gurkhas in there, but 31,000 killed. But then, you look on the Ottoman Empire and you've got over 56,000 killed. So the amount, you think about that, you put that into the context of a football pitch or a football stadium or something. These numbers, they're fucking big numbers of just people's lives, who've gone at least fucking 20 years or something to get to this point. and then just fucking wiped out in a moment. But the fact that it's not just everyone's wiped out at the end, you've got this thing where, Frank's sent off to get this message, and then you get almost the reprieve, don't you? Because on the other side, you've got the guy who did the recruiting, the Aussie general kind of thing. And he knows he's going to go over the top. Again, as I talk about all the different characters, I thought he played a good little character as well. Because, he's brought these boys through, he's recruited them, he's brought them over here. He knows he's probably going to fucking die himself because they're going to go over the top. And they're just going to get cut down. It is the end. It is literally walk into your own death. And when Frank goes off and he nearly gets caught by snipers, doesn't he? He's like, oh, don't go down there. And I'm thinking, Chris, coming to this end sort of climax, I'm thinking, well, Archie's a good fucking runner. I wonder if he's going to put on a bit of a hero's sprint here and then, jump into a fucking sniper's nest or something and be a hero. And fuck me, what an ending.
Yeah. And I think it works. When we've watched movies where you go, is that it? It just ends, doesn't it? And you go, what the fuck's going on? Why has it just ended? I think that's the perfect way to end it. The whole running, it depicts the start of the movie, doesn't it? It's just like, fuck it. Yes. What got me, Dave, is the colonel that when he's about to blow the whistle and he's fucking shaking. He's fucking shaking. He's been strong and quite fingy, and that is such a great shot. And then they go and to show Archie, and it just stops. And that's a very old school way to end a movie, isn't it? And it just goes. It's almost like a TV thing. I'm saying that Aussie feel to like the Sullivans. They used to end like that. They'd have something that happen, and then it finished till the next episode. It felt very familiar. But normally, I would be like, well, that's fucking rubbish. What an end? Why has it done that? But it couldn't end any other way, could it? It's basically Frank can't get back in time. They've already gone. And then he just pans to Archie running as if he's free again. He's in this, they've joined the army, and it's not this fucking thing they thought it was. It's a real worrying and, well, it's life-ending situation for Archie. But the fact that he gets shot and everything, and it's that same style, I think it's a perfect ending, to be honest. I don't think you could have done it any other way, to be honest, because you don't need to tell any more of the story. It just shows how fucking bad war was, and miscommunication just got loads of people killed.
But that anguish scream from Frank, he knows he wasn't fast enough. And he's heard the whistle, everyone's gone over the top. He knows his mate is not going to make it. Yeah. Oh, haunting. Yeah.
Brilliant acting. Again, Mel Gibson, Mark Lee, really, really good. Really good. Great movie.
And you can see the star power. I mean, we talked about the budget. I completely agree, by the way. You don't feel like this is a low budget, one of our martial arts specials where you can see the fucking background of falling over and stuff. You never get that in this, do you? It never feels like a small budget, even though, they've just made the most of it. And what a movie.
Great movie. So should we get into our scores, Dave?
Let's go.
So I think as we're talking about it, I think I've elevated my score on this. I think it's just a great movie, and it is available on YouTube. It's not one of them classics where you go, oh, it's on YouTube because it's crap. I think it's a bonus that it's
Retreat,
on YouTube.
No Surrender 3, Chris.
Well, Dave, 115,000, nearly 120,000 views with some commentary.
Unbelievable.
Two bellends. We're still getting abused, but I love it. Well, the conversion rate's pretty good because I think it's at 1% conversion rate because we've now hit 1,000 subscribers on that channel, Dave, which is amazing. So thank you to all our friends from the other side of the world, even though they obviously go on Google Translate to give us abuse. We like it. Movie's great. Why is the noise? These guys aren't funny. These are like part of pulling out some of the quotes we get every week. I love it. But no, it's a bonus that this is on YouTube because if you do want to watch it, I would recommend it. I think it's really good. I think Mel Gibson's excellent. You can see why he got the career he did in acting, and I just think it stands up. I think it's just such a real depiction of war and the intrepidation, the fear, the sort of excitement of it all. And then it's funny, Dave, because it is the Blackadder ending, really. That whole scene, I love that scene. I'm with you. Like, Blackadder's a smart ass. Even Lord Flashard, fucking Rick Mayall. I love that series, whether in World War II and that, or World War, whatever it is. He's so good in it, Rick Mayall, isn't he? Like, he's such a wanker, but he's such. I mean, he plays the character through, but in that especially, it stuck with me, that series and that end bit, and that's very similar how this ends. So yeah, brilliant movie. I think I'm going to put it in Pleasantville, Dave. A great movie, and I'm the famous words. I'll watch it again. I don't know whether I will, but I'll certainly be recommending it to people. Definitely, great movie. What about yourself?
Yeah, very good. So I, like yourself, I love this way more than I thought I was going to. I didn't quite watch it. I just didn't have time, but I was going to watch it a second time before we recorded, and I don't know when I'll watch it again. I will definitely watch it again, though. I mean, what a heartbreaking ending. And you have these movies, don't you, to draw a crap parallel probably, but when we talk about The Usual Suspects and movies like that just have an ending where you're just like, shit, and then you finish the movie and you're like, fucking hell, and it's in your mind then for the next few hours, days, weeks, or whatever. So yeah, I this is way better than I thought it was going to be, and I loved it. I thought the music, I say about the music, I thought most of the music was great, was fantastic even. I thought the way it was played there, apart from that fucking weird early 80s synth music that just seemed weirdly... Yeah, it just seemed weirdly out of place.
Yeah, why?
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't like that bit, but I'm nitpicking a bit there. You're right, the acting performances, and you can absolutely see why, Mel Gibson had that star quality. Like I say, a bit of a problematic person, but you can still appreciate, okay, this fucker can act quite a bit, and he just has that charisma that he just commands the screen when he's on it. And that anguished cry, that scream at the end, it's absolutely haunting, and definitely it's that classic thing of what we say with like 70s movies, things like The Conversation, is that very last scene, everything's built up to this moment at the end. And just a brilliant crescendo there. Chris, I'm going to go slightly higher. Haven't done this for a while, but this is a Cloud City for me. I think it's on the borderline of Pleasantville and Cloud City, but I think it's done just enough. The fact that they've made so much of the budget, the locations, the shots, the acting, the music, everything. And, again, there were some artistic liberties taken and stuff, but also if you look at, I think what this probably means to Australians, I imagine this is huge. We hadn't watched it, we hadn't really heard of it, but I can imagine this is massive there, and really is the whole, they call them the Anzacs, don't they? The Australia New Zealand Army Corps. And where they landed, I think they've renamed that the kind of Anzac Cove. I can imagine, in terms of Australian identity, this is fucking right up there. So yeah. Brilliant movie.
I think you're right. Great description as well. So Dave, next week's episode, a big thank you to Herb. What a great movie. Took me by surprise, definitely. It's another Patreon pick, Dave. This one's from Gareth. This is a movie that I actually watched about 10 years ago for the first time ever. So I'm going to be interested to see if it stands up. I can't remember whether I liked it or not. However, it is a classic. We're going back to 1990. It stars Fred Ward, Mr. Kevin Bacon. It's Tremors, Dave. Let's get into the trailer.
I think I watched this the first time. It was like late at night. I had no idea what.
Perfection. A scorched outpost in the middle of nowhere.
You know how close I am to leaving this place right now? How close?
Maybe
There's a
that's
few
why
Fred
Val
Ward
and
movies
Earl
now, Dave.
No, yeah, Fred Ward's up there,
decided
isn't
to
he?
leave town.
In Miami Blues.
Hey, hold up. That's
Well,
Edgar James.
Remo Williams.
They just
Remo
picked the wrong
Williams.
day
It's another
to
one
do
with
it.
Tom Green as well.
Jeez. You guys better get the hell out of here. There's a killer on the loose.
Who could be doing it?
Oh, fucking hell, it's the guy from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
20.
That's how they get you. They're under the ground.
I'm going to make a prediction, Chris. You'll fucking hate this.
I'm the whole station wagon.
Where they come
So I have
from,
seen it
from
once
outer space.
about 10 years ago.
No way these are local boys.
You see, they're headed right for us.
No Richter scale can measure it.
They're coming!
No scientist can explain it.
Bert, they're under the ground.
You didn't get penetration even with the elephant gun.
Run,
That's a
run.
bit noisy.
And no one knows what to call it.
Megaworms or suckers or suckoids.
Now, this valley is
Trying
just
to
one
shave
long
the big
smorgasbord.
Now, it's up to Val and Earl to save the world.
That's one big mother.
Who died and made you Einstein?
And they know just what to do. Flip for it.
Damn.
Kevin Bacon. Fred Ward.
Glorious hair back there.
Tremors.
This is a classic. This is VHS
Yeah.
fodder 101 this day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't. It's another one of those movies. I'm like, how have we not done this one yet?
Yeah,
It's a
just
bizarre
like-
one, but yeah, I do think you will hate it. But I can't wait to watch. I can't wait to rewatch it. I haven't watched it for a few years now, so yeah, I think you'll hate it, and we'll have some great discussion.
I think so as well. So massive thank you to everyone. If you do want to email us, the vhsstrikesback@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on social media at VHS Strikes Back. As always, if you get a chance, drop myself and Dave a review on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And if you do like No Shoot No Sender Free, get over to Facebook, get over to YouTube and just, have a go at me and Dave and I watch along on our YouTube channel. We do appreciate it, no matter what part of the world you're in. But if you do want to support us a little bit more, please get over to patreon.com/the VHS Strikes Back. So the roll call of honour and a massive thank you to Gareth, Mike, Lee, Helen, Dylan, Dan, Justin, Susan, Timothy, Matt, Hales, Kent, Lucky Green, Herbs, Jack, Math, Blake, John Hammond, and Mr. Tony Farina. So thank you so much, guys, for all your support. Amazing stuff. Everyone, I always say it every week, past and present, who supported us, we do appreciate it. So, Dave, I know obviously at this point we will, we have a musical number, but what have you gone with today?
Yeah, so normally we'll have a listen through and then we'll have a little bit of a chat right at the end, but I'm just going to play out to this one. Obviously, I couldn't do, the classic kind of Hairspray rock, take the piss and put some silly lyrics in there. So I've gone completely the other way and put together probably the most somber thing that I have to date. So this one's called Archie's Last Run. And Chris, thank you very much. It's a great discussion this week. Thanks so much, Herb, for picking this one. Can't wait to get into Tremors next week as well. But thanks to all our listeners. Thanks to all our supporters. And we'll speak to you next time.
Bye.
the fields of Galilee.